What are the 20 old-school lead tricks that let you break more clay targets without guessing at how far ahead to aim? Every recreational clay shooter I have ever met has the same problem at some point. You stand in the cage. The puller throws the show pair. You watch the bird arc across the sky. And the only thought going through your head is some version of okay, that needs about, 3 feet of lead, maybe 4. Then you call pull, the bird emerges, and your brain has 0. 8 seconds to convert that vague 3 or 4 foot guess into an actual barrel position relative to a moving target you can barely see clearly. You miss. You blame the swing. The swing was fine. You guessed, and the guess was wrong. The 20 tricks I am going to walk you through are different from anything else on YouTube about lead because they are not philosophy. They are physical methods, specific reference points, and small mental shortcuts that recreational shooters have been quietly using at clubs across America since the 1950s, and almost none of them get filmed because they look too simple to demonstrate. Stay until the end because the 20th trick is the one most amateur shooters get backwards, and getting it right adds 3 to 5 broken targets on outdoor courses with any wind at all. It is a piece of choke and pattern reality that most lead instruction videos completely skip. Quick framing before I get into the list. There is a real argument among teaching pros about which method is the right one: sustained lead, swing through, pull away, ambush. I am not going to pretend they all work equally well for everyone, because they do not. What I will tell you is that these 20 tricks cover all 4 methods, and pieces from each will work for different presentations on the same course. The guys who break 90 out of 100 at a Saturday club shoot are not running one method on every station. They are switching tools based on what the bird is doing. By the end of this list, you will have a full toolbox. The job is to know which tool to grab. Trick 1. The barrel length rule for crossing targets at 25 yards. A standard 25-yard sporting clay crosser at a typical 40 miles per hour flight speed needs roughly 1 full visible barrel length of lead in front of the bird, measured along your sight picture as the gun reaches the kill point. A 28-inch barrel on a Beretta 6A6 retails around $2,400, and that barrel length is roughly the length of a kitchen knife from grip to tip. Visualize the bird sitting 1 knife length ahead of where your bead is. That is your target picture. The reason this works is that you finally have something concrete to measure against. 3 feet of lead is meaningless in midair. 1 barrel length is something your eye can actually see. I shot at 12 handicap clay average for 8 years before another shooter at my club. Explain this to me. Within 2 Saturdays, my crossing target hit rate had gone from 4 of 8 to 6 of 8. Same gun, same shells, different mental reference. Trick 2. The car on the highway analogy. Your brain already knows how to lead a moving object. You have been doing it for 30 years every time you merge onto a freeway. Picture the clay as a car traveling 40 miles per hour in the lane next to you, and yourself as a car going 35 miles per hour in the slow lane. The gap your eye finds when you want to merge into traffic is your lead. You do not consciously calculate it. Your visual system has been pattern matching merge gaps since you got your driver's license. Use that. When you call pull, tell your brain highway merge instead of calculate lead. The merge instinct produces correct lead automatically because the underlying math is identical. Your visual cortex is already doing the work. You just need to stop overthinking it. Trick 3. The double lead rule for stretched birds. When a target looks like it is 40 yards out, your gut will tell you to use about half the lead the shot actually needs. Trust me on this one. The reason is that human depth perception compresses at distance. So a target that appears to be moving slowly across your visual field at 40 yards is actually moving faster than your eye is registering. Whatever lead your gut suggests on a stretched bird, double it. If your instinct says 3 feet, give it 6. If it says 4 feet, give it 8. About the width of a kitchen island, which is roughly 7 feet, is the right number for a 40-yard fast crosser. You will feel like you are leading the target into the next county. You will also start breaking targets you have been spraying shells past for years. Trick 4. The fence post method for measuring lead on the show pair. When the puller throws the show pair, do not just watch the bird. Mentally place imaginary fence posts along its flight path at 8-foot intervals, about the length of a standard rural fence section. Count how many fence posts the bird travels between the trap and your intended kill point. That count is your lead reference. If the bird travels 5 fence post lengths from the trap to where you want to break it, you have a built-in mental scale that converts to barrel position. This is something I picked up from a logger-turned-weekend skeet shooter in upstate New York, who told me he learned it from his uncle in the 1970s, and his uncle had learned it from somebody on a duck hunting trip in the 1950s. Old-timer wisdom, no YouTube channel. Trick 5, the wingtip to beak reference for incoming overhead targets. Incoming birds need almost zero forward lead because they are flying toward you, not across. What they need is vertical lead. Hold your bead on the leading edge of the clay, which I think of as the beak, not the center of the clay body. The beak is the front edge moving in your direction. Centering the bead on the beak gives you the right vertical compensation to break the target as it crosses overhead. The miss on incoming targets is almost always behind and below, because shooters lead horizontally on a target that does not need horizontal lead. Beak focus fixes it. Trick 6, the reverse engineering trick for missed pairs. After every missed clay, ask yourself one binary question. Would I have hit it with half the lead I just used? If the answer is yes, you overlead. Cut the lead in half on the next pair. If the answer is no, you underlead. Double the lead on the next pair. This one binary question applied at every miss eliminates roughly 80% of lead guessing chaos. The reason it works is that the human brain is excellent at binary distinctions and terrible at fine-grained numerical adjustments. Was it half or not half is a question your gut can answer in 1 second. Was it 3 feet or 4 feet is not. Trick 7, the sustained lead method, taught most famously by Neskia Hall of Fame coach Gil Ash. Pick your lead distance, place the muzzle at that exact spot ahead of where the bird will be. Match the bird's speed precisely, and pull the trigger without changing the gap. No swing through, no pull away, just a fixed visible gap. Held steady for about half a second, then trigger. Sustained lead is the best method for shooters who struggle with timing because it removes acceleration from the equation. You set the gap, you hold the gap, you fire. The gap does the work. This method has been the foundation of competitive skeet shooting for 60 years, and it is what I would recommend for any new shooter trying to build consistency. The reason sustained lead works so well for beginners is that it gives the brain something static to focus on. Acceleration-based methods like swing through and pull away require constant micro-adjustments during the swing, which is cognitively demanding under pressure. Sustained lead asks for one decision at the start, then hold and fire. The cognitive load drops, the body relaxes, and consistency goes up. I shot sustained lead almost exclusively for my first 4 years of recreational sporting clays and broke roughly 60 out of 100 with it. When I tried swing through too early in my progression, my scores actually dropped because the timing was beyond what my body could deliver reliably. Build the foundation with sustained, then add the other methods as your eye sharpens. Trick 8, the swing through method for fasters. Start the muzzle behind the bird, accelerate the gun smoothly through the target, and pull the trigger the exact instant the barrel passes the leading edge of the clay. The lead happens automatically through trigger lag, which I will explain in detail at Trick 16. You do not measure a gap, you measure a moment, specifically the moment your barrel crosses the front of the bird. Swing through is best for fast targets where you do not have time to set a sustained gap. The downside is that shooters who use swing through often overshoot because they keep swinging after the trigger pull. The fix is to think the words swing to the bird, not through it, which I have talked about before. The mechanic is swing through. The mental cue is swing to. Both are true depending on what your brain does with the words. Trick 9, the pull-away method, which is what most Nesca Masterclass shooters use on medium-distance crossers. Match the bird's speed first, just like in sustained lead, then accelerate the muzzle away from the bird at the very last moment, pulling the trigger as the gap opens. The lead is felt as a rhythm rather than measured as a distance. The advantage of pull-away is that it works on targets at variable speeds because the gun matches before it leads. The disadvantage is that it requires a refined sense of timing that takes 6 to 12 months of weekly shooting to develop. Worth the effort. About 70% of the top NSCA shooters at the national level use some version of pull-away on most of their stations. Trick 10, the ambush method for tight presentations and trap-style going-away targets. Pick a fixed spot in the bird's flight path. Hold the muzzle exactly on that spot, with your eyes locked on the emergence point where the bird first appears. Pull the trigger the instant the bird arrives at the muzzle, not before. Zero lead measurement is required. The trigger pull's natural delay plus the bird's speed create the lead automatically. Ambush works best on short, predictable presentations like Atia trap or tight chandelles. It fails badly on long crossers because the bird has too much time to drift off the predicted line. Use it for stations where you have a clearly defined break zone and a fast emerging bird. This is the halfway point of the list. And I want to flag something before we go further. The 4 method tricks you just heard, sustained lead, swing through, pull away, and ambush, are the 4 canonical schools of clay shooting instruction. Teaching pros have argued about which one is right for 70 years, and they will keep arguing. The honest answer is that all 4 work, none of them works for every presentation. And the shooters who break 90 out of 100 use different methods on different stations within the same round. Pick the one that fits your eye for each station type, and stop apologizing for switching tools when the station calls for a different one. Trick 11, the basketball full shot trick for lead consistency. Every NBA player shoots free throws with the same arc, same elbow position, same wrist motion, every single attempt, regardless of game pressure. Apply that principle to lead. Pick one lead method per station and never mix methods mid-station. If you decided to use sustained lead on station 5, every pair on station 5 gets sustained lead. Do not switch to swing through on pair 3 because you missed pair 2 with sustained. Switching methods inside a single station is the single most common cause of inconsistent gaps among recreational shooters. Pick your method based on the station, commit to it for all the pairs at that station, then evaluate after you walk out of the cage. Consistency comes from method discipline, not method variety. Trick 12, the wind-adjusted lead rule, a 10 miles per hour crosswind. About what you feel on your face from a strong breeze, moves your effective lead requirement by roughly half a barrel length on any target over 25 yards out. Into the wind crossers need less lead because the wind slows the target. With the wind crossers need more lead because the wind accelerates it. About 14 inches of barrel adjustment, roughly the length of a baseball bat handle, is the right correction for a 10 miles per hour crosswind on a 30-yard crosser. Most recreational shooters either ignore wind entirely or compensate in the wrong direction. The trick is to think of the wind as adding or subtracting speed from the bird, not as pushing the bird eyeways. Speed change requires lead change. Direction is a different problem. Trick 13, the old-timers feel the speed trick. Verbalize the bird's speed out loud during the show pair, using a number scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is a floating incoming chandelle and 5 is a screaming rabbit on a Texas course. Say the number quietly to yourself as you watch the show pair. That's a 3. Your lead requirement scales directly with the speed call. With no conscious math required, a 1 needs almost no lead. A 5 needs maximum lead for the station type. The reason verbalizing works is that the spoken number anchors your motor cortex to a corresponding physical response that you have practiced before. Your body learns to associate 3 with a specific gap and 4 with a wider one. It builds an internal calibration system that does not require feet or inches. Trick 14. The trail foot pivot trick for lead direction on right to left crossers if you are right-handed. Before you call pull, pre-pivot your trail foot, which is your right foot for a righty, by 10 to 15 degrees toward the target line. About the difference between a clock hand pointing at 12 and one pointing at 1, roughly the width of a thumb at arm's length. This preload lets your body unwind into the lead direction during the swing instead of fighting against it. The lead becomes a body motion, not an arm motion, which produces a far more consistent gap because the body is more stable than the hands. I picked this up from an old NSEA shooter at a Texas club who said Elzindler took a coach in the 1980s, who had picked it up from a British sporting clays instructor in the 1970s. 3 generations of pivot trick, still works. Trick 15. The 2 feet of daylight rule for going away birds. A target moving directly away from you at 30 yards out needs roughly 2 feet of visible daylight. Under the bird, not above or behind, about the width of a standard truck tire, which is what your eye should see, between your bead and the bottom of the clay. This means you mount slightly under the target line rather than directly on it, which gives the shot string time to rise into the bird as it flies away. The most common amateur miss on going away targets is high and behind, which happens because shooters cover the bird with the bead and the shot column passes under it. Drop the bead, leave daylight under, and the math works out. Trick 16. The trigger lag math. The average human voluntary trigger pull takes about 0.1 seconds, which is roughly the time it takes to blink. A 40 miles per hour clay travels about 9 feet in that 0.15 seconds, which is roughly the length of a small couch. This is the part most lead instruction videos completely skip, and it is also the most important number to understand. Your perceived lead, which is the gap you see when you decide to pull the trigger, can be smaller than your actual lead, which is where the shot column meets the bird. by up 9 feet. That gap between perception and reality is why beginners who try to measure lead in feet usually miss in front of the bird. They are seeing the actual lead and adding more, when the lag was already adding the lead for them. Knowing this number stops the overlead problem at the source. I want to admit something here because it cost me about 2 seasons of progress. When I first heard about trigger lag, I assumed it would not apply to me because I have fast hands and a quick mount. I was wrong. Faster trigger pulls still take roughly to 0.1 seconds at the absolute minimum, which is still 6 to 7 feet of bird travel at 40 miles per hour. The lag is a physical constant rooted in nerve transmission speed, not a function of how reactive you feel. I miscalculated my own perceived lead for 2 full years because I thought I was somehow exempt from the math. The data does not care how quick you think you are. Trust the lag, build it into your mental model, and the overlead misses go away. Trick 17. The eye lead versus gun lead distinction. Your eyes should be ahead of the bird before your gun ever moves. The gun naturally follows the eyes. If your eyes lock onto the bird, your gun chases. If your eyes lead the bird, your gun arrives at the right place automatically. The recreational shooter problem is that the eyes get fascinated by the moving target and stop scanning ahead, which forces the gun into chase mode. The fix is to consciously move your eyes to where the bird is going to be, then let the gun rise and track. Eye discipline is the difference between a shooter who looks smooth and a shooter who looks frantic. Both can break targets, but the smooth shooter does it twice as often. Trick 18, the half-step adjustment rule. When you miss in front by an obvious margin, your next shot reduces the lead by half, not by the full amount. So if you used what felt like 4 feet of lead and missed visibly in front, your correction is 2 feet, not 0. Adjusting in halves is what prevents the overcorrection problem that produces the next miss in the opposite direction. The shooter who misses in front drops the lead to 0, and then misses behind has just compounded 1 mistake into 2. Halve every correction. You will land in the right neighborhood faster and stay there longer. Trick 19. The beat on bird versus beat ahead trick for truly slow targets. On floating income presentations, lazy condels, and any target moving under about 25 miles per hour, place the bead directly on the bird and shoot. The natural trigger lag plus the bird's speed produce enough lead all by itself. No conscious gap is needed. This is counterintuitive because everything else about clay shooting tells you to lead the bird, but on slow targets, leading produces an overlead miss because the trigger lag math from trick 16 has already given you all the lead you need. Bead on the front edge, pull the trigger, target breaks. Trick 20. This is the one I promised at the start, and it is the choke and pattern reality check that most lead instruction videos completely skip. The choke you are running, whether improved cylinder, modified or full, does not change your lead requirement. It changes your margin for error. A tight full choke produces a roughly 20-inch pattern at 30 yards, about the width of a steering wheel, which means your lead has to be within a few inches of correct or you miss. A loose improved cylinder choke produces a roughly 35-inch pattern at the same distance, about the width of a coffee table, which forgives small lead errors because the pattern simply covers more space. Old-timers shoot improved cylinder on close birds for a reason. They are not trying to be more skilled. They are buying themselves a wider margin. If you are struggling with lead consistency, open your choke. The pattern will catch the bird even when your gap is slightly off, and the broken target count will jump 3 to 5 per round on outdoor courses with any wind. This is the trick almost no recreational shooter applies, and it is free if you already own a multi-choke shotgun. About 95% of modern field-grade shotguns at the $700 to $3,000 price range come with screw-in chokes. Change the choke before you change the swing. Worth mentioning here that the matching shell choice also affects pattern. A standard 1-ounce target load of 8 shot from a major brand like Federal Top Gun, which retails around $80 a case, patterns differently than a premium hand load, but for recreational shooters the difference is small enough to ignore. Choke matters far more than shell brand for pattern width. Spend the energy on choke selection, not on chasing exotic shells. And do not stack a tight choke with high-velocity loads if you are missing consistently. The combination produces a hard, narrow, fast pattern that demands perfect lead and punishes anything else. Open choke plus standard velocity is the forgiving combination. Use it until your lead is consistent, then tighten if you want. Run the math on stacking these. A recreational shooter applying 8 of these 20 tricks correctly will break roughly 8 to 12 more targets per 100. A shooter committing to all 20 over a 3-month period will land in the range of 15 to 20 more broken targets per round, which is the difference between staying in low 50s territory and pushing into the high 70s and 80s, where the game starts to feel like fun instead of frustration. None of this requires a new gun, new shells, or new lessons. Lead is the most undertaught aspect of clay shooting because it is mostly invisible. The barrel position, the gap, the rhythm, the choke pattern, none of it leaves a visible trail. So instruction videos default to talking about stance and breathing instead, because stance and breathing are visible and lead is not. Once you understand the 4 methods plus the supporting tricks, you stop guessing entirely and start choosing. That is the whole game. A final word. Do not try to install all 20 of these on the same Saturday. Pick the 4 method tricks at numbers 7 through 10 and figure out which one fits your eye on which station type. That takes 2 or 3 rounds. Then layer in the supporting tactics, 3 at a time, over the next 6 weeks. By month 3, you will have a personal lead system that nobody can take from you. The guys at your club will start asking what changed. Tell them you stopped guessing. Then watch them spend the next year trying to figure out what that means while you keep breaking targets. Go run the system, read the bird, pick the method, trust the gap, and break some clays.